Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Divi Nation. Divi Nation is a podcast and video show by Elegant Themes, the creators of Divi, the ultimate WordPress theme and visual page builder. The goal of Divi Nation is really simple. We want to provide you with the knowledge, insights, and supportive community that you need to be successful with WordPress and Divi. I'm your host, Nathan B. Weller, and as your host, it's my job to facilitate that success by having various guests from the Divi and wider WordPress community onto the show to share their stories and experiences with you. Today, I'm interviewing Carl Heaton, the founder of Web Courses Bangkok, based out of, you probably guessed it, Bangkok, Thailand. Carl has mastered the art of creating relevant and empowering courses that work both for in-person training and online courses. In this episode, we're going to hear his WordPress story, his Divi story, and then we're going to discuss the many tips and tricks of the trade that he's picked up over the years, building and scaling an information product business that teaches Divi and a whole lot of other cool stuff. Here is our conversation. Carl, welcome to Divi Nation.
Hey.
It's really great to finally have you on the show. We've been playing some email tag lately, and being you're located in Bangkok, Thailand. That's correct.
Yeah, that's why it's all dark here and it's all light for you.
Yeah. So there's a slight difference of 11 or 12 hours. We had some scheduling difficulties, and but we're here now, and I'm glad you're on the show.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Thanks for the time.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems pretty obvious that you're not from Bangkok, Thailand. How did you end up there?
How do you guess?
How did you end up there, and what is actually, maybe we should do the day in the life first, but I'm really interested in how you ended up with your business base there with,
Sure.
running everything. So maybe you can combine both of those or get back to the day in the life later. I want to jump straight to the thing that's staring me in the face is what's in Bangkok, and how'd you end up there?
Well, I suppose the story starts, I've been a web designer for about 18 years. I was doing web design in Brighton, down in the south of England. And I used to go to London to party. And on the way back to Brighton, I saw this beautiful girl coming out of the underground. And I said to myself, if I don't say hello, I'm going to regret it.
As you do.
And after she kidnapped me and brought me to Bangkok, I did regret it. No. We sort of like chatted her up, and we got on really well. And I gave up my career and things in Brighton, and I came back to Bangkok with her. She was from Thailand. That was 11 years ago, and now we're married, and we have a beautiful son. And she's actually the owner of the company. In fact, she owns everything. Anybody who's lived in Thailand knows that. The Thais have to own everything. So she owns the car, the house, the other house, everything. So I'm stuck. That's how I came here. And I love it.
So you guys started and run Web Courses Bangkok together. And
so basically,
tell us a bit about that.
Well, basically what happened is 10, 11 years ago, the tech scene here was diabolical, really. It was just like, people ripping people off and doing really, really, really bad web design. In fact, calling it web design was pretty much insulting web design as a sector. And I was a project manager for a small company, and I was interviewing people, and I'd say things like, due diligence and web standards and optimization and speed optimization, usability, and I'd just get this blank look, and I'm just like, surely you know some of this. Okay, HTML, CSS, great. Okay, we know that. And anyway, so time after time, I just couldn't find anybody, and I'd been a teacher for a long time, so I had this idea. I said, why don't I just start up my own school? Why not teach people web design? So my first class was in my dining room with a one little foot square sort of little thing that I'd write on and going, this is a P tag and this is H1. It turned out really well. We bootstrapped and it went really well, and we've been growing and growing ever since, and now we're an accredited school. We're a full school.
Oh, wow.
We get people from all over the world.
How many years ago was that beginning?
9.
9 years ago.
Years.
And when you got started, you said you bootstrapped. Yeah. So how long did it take you before you were doing, web courses as opposed to like in-person workshops?
Well, no. Web courses was just the name of the brand. We were doing in-person workshops. And especially, I'll never forget that time when we moved over we were doing sort of like HTML, CSS, but then WordPress became more viable. And that really changed everything, because then we were able to sort of say, look, you don't have to spend all this time learning HTML, CSS and templating. And back then it was sort of Dreamweaver. Doing template tags and stuff like that. And then WordPress came along, and you get these people saying, look, I don't really want to be a web designer. I just want a website. Can you teach me how to do that? And we were like, you know what? Now we can. Now that WordPress is better. And then the story carried on. And when Divi came along, because we were massive Elegant Themes fan for a while, we were doing all of our little projects with it. With I can't remember all the really good themes now. But when Divi came along, it was even easier for people to just build a really simple site. I'd love to I'll send you a link of a website that an 82-year-old gentleman is building.
What?
It's awesome. It's absolutely awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to hear. Yeah, please do. And I'd love to, on that note, I'd love to hear some stories of, what kind of, because we always love to learn about the empowerment of our community. And that just sounds to me like a prime example of, when you can put a little bit of knowledge and a really powerful tool that's easy to understand in someone's hands, you just open up some possibilities. I'm sure you've got some more stories to share along those lines. Yeah. What kind of stuff have you seen and been able to achieve there?
Well, we've had people, I remember we had one guy, this is just a nice story around the Divi theme anyway, but there was a guy who actually, I don't know how he managed to do it, but he lost his job, he lost all his money, he lost his wife and his kids, he lost everything, and he had to start all over again.
Sounds like a country song.
Yeah. And anyway, so he came over to us for a recommendation, and he built this little consulting site with Divi. And it was literally just change the logo, add a forward slider, 3 text boxes, and a footer with a contact form. That was it, using Divi. And we built it in 6 hours. So 3 2-hour lessons. So first 2 hours is figuring out what they want and talking to him and listening to his sub story. And, second 2 hours was basic WordPress. And then the third 2 hours was Divi. And as you know, it's click, click, done, if you do that. And he managed to get his life back on track just because of that lesson, because he got consulting jobs. And that stories like that was brilliant. And that's 6 hours. It was 6 hours.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, so let's talk about your web courses. A lot of people in our community are interested in running or starting, information product businesses, and that's obviously your bread and butter. So can we maybe talk about the courses that you offer and how you jump back and forth between the pure web stuff and the workshop stuff, and what the balance is there?
Sure. We started when we started doing the workshops and things. We had a lot of handouts, so all of those handouts and presentations were able to be put online as well. So we actually started using Udemy. And our courses did really well there, actually. We didn't do anything with WordPress because, to be very honest, it changes too much. I think if you really want to do online learning with WordPress, it has to be webinars. If you start trying to do courses, think about Divi, right? If you base it on Divi, going from like the new version that just came out, there's so many different things, and this new focus on the front end editing is massive. And that's where the power is. So you'd have to sort of change all your things. And I've done that. I remember I did a massive course on Adobe Photoshop, and it was just before it went black. And then it just came out black, and I'm like, you have to change the color. Couldn't you have just kept it the same? But I had to throw out the whole course. So, but one thing that we do, which might help your readers, is if you're teaching anybody, or you want to do things like that, information things, try and teach them live and do a screen recording, and then have another camera sort of looking at your faces or something like that. So do a screen recording, do what you need to do, get your chatting and stuff like that, and do it live instead of trying to do this pre-made scripts, doing it live like that's a lot quicker. And you can do these little chopped up little bits, put that out, and you've got a course.
Oh, wow. So you're just like, when you do your courses, when you put them together, you kind of have, I'm assuming, an itinerary to go through, and then you just record the whole thing, and then you chop it up later, and you do it with a live workshop, and then so you're actually monetizing the creation process too.
Exactly. We used to do that with I get the idea from that from it was when Ruby on Rails came out. So when they sort of came up with the idea of Ruby on Rails because they wanted to have a better technology to build Basecamp, and then they just reused it and released it, that became really, really popular. And I thought, well, how can I do that? How can I use what I do day to day and make sort of a product out of it? And so we used to do Photoshop lessons. So I'd be sat here, there's a person sat next to me, and I was teaching them how to cut things out and stick their boyfriend's head on a dog and all that kind of weird stuff that they want to know. And I just live recorded it. And then what I used to do is just speed it up, add some music, and I had a YouTube video. So, you know, it's kind of, if you're doing day-to-day stuff anyway, just record it and then put it on YouTube. It's a great content.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, I know on our end, we're always looking for ways that we can get quality content, useful content out there quicker, and because we're doing so much, you know, 2 posts a day and ideally a video, so you're putting stuff out all the time, and to have that system in place is huge. So that sounds like something we'll probably do.
I mean, what I would advise, Nathan, is like if you want to say get a brief, or let's have a look at your house. You've got a cat thing in the back right hand corner there, right? Let's say that you know that shop, and you go, tell you what, can I build you a landing page? You just go and talk to them, say, can I have some of your brochures and things like that? And literally build it live and say, you know, here's the brochure I've got, it's got this and stuff like that. I think I'll put this here. Talk about the design thinking and the critical thinking, and then do it live. And you know how fast it is with Divi. Yeah. You've got a brilliant YouTube video there that takes you maybe 1 or 2 hours. Yeah, that's something that we've talked about for Facebook Live as well. Is a good use of that, is doing doing live little webinar things like that. So let's talk more about Web Courses Bangkok. How have you, based on what you've said so far, it sounds like you focus on a lot of principles, you focus on a lot of programs that have longer development cycles, such as the Adobe Suite. So are you teaching Divi right now, or do you just recommend that? 100% teach Divi.
Okay, great.
Right, I mean, really, it's what
I wouldn't, if you weren't, I wasn't gonna, you know, kick you off the show or anything, but but I was just curious. Seriously. Yeah, we do, because the thing is like when, okay, I'll tell you a little story that will help give context to it. Was when I was about 7 years into doing this, I looked at myself and I said, look, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm making this up. I'm doing the best I can. I'm attending events and courses on how to teach and developing course materials, and I'm always doing the job I'm teaching, which is very important for our teachers. Anybody who teaches here does the job day to day. So there's none of these lectures stuff. I nearly swore then. It's like, yes, you need to go to page 76. No, you don't, mate. We want people who do it day to day. Because say, look, I was using the carousel module yesterday on Divi, and it just messed up because I was using a PNG and it was too big, right? So don't do that. Use a JPEG. And little things like that. I want people to be able to get those nuggets of knowledge. So 7 years passed, and I was like, look, I don't really know what I'm doing. I want to invite some people around and see if what I'm doing is right. And so I said, right, I got all the friends I could who were owning agencies, web designers, graphic designers, etc., and the WordPress community here as well. I said, look, I'll give you free beer and free pizza as much as you can possibly stomach. I swear I will feed you until you pop. All I want to do is ask a few questions. And we had about 24 people in this room here. And funny enough, they didn't drink that much. It was quite funny. But I said, look, guys, if you want to be a WordPress designer or a WordPress freelancer, whatever, what are the skills you need? Because it's obvious that you need to know WordPress and you need to know, say, a bit of Photoshop and stuff like that. But
what about emails? What about DNS? What about buying domain names? What about email backups and all this kind of stuff that's around it? How do you create a proposal? How do you talk to a client who's going, crazy and all that kind of stuff? And so we put it all on the wall and we put it into modules. And a big part of that was I wanted to always say to people, when you're using WordPress, you find a theme and you stick with it. Don't start trying to sort of use lots of different themes, because you end up having to spend so much time learning that theme that you don't do any work. So you're going, why it works like, why is it using widgets for the homepage? And where's the customizer? The customizer doesn't work. How do I change the fonts? But if you know one theme like Divi, and that's the one we chose, you know exactly where it is, unless you change it to customizer, and sometimes it's in the Divi themes options. I'm not bitching, but maybe that could be sorted. Where do you change the logo? That's the question. Anyway, so I said, look, let's choose Divi. And then what we did is we worked back, and when we were teaching them UI design, we said, look, Divi uses 1080 as the grid with a 60 pixel gutter. Use that when you're doing your UI design. So when you are moving it into Divi, it's just slot like that. And then you did something really amazing, which was you enabled us to change the gutter size and the full size of the thing. That was genius. That was genius. So that means I said to people, I said, you don't have to use this grid anymore. You can change it and then just slot it into Divi.
It's a flexible grid. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So
it's the future.
So that's kind of the stuff that I want to get into, is the real practical nuts and bolts of putting together this kind of business. So it sounds like you started with a big brainstorm. You figured out what your content was. What was the next stage of putting together your web course business?
Next stage was two things. One was creating my own website. Back in those days, I was using Joomla. Sorry, Joomla people, but it sucks. We were using Joomla, so we had to have a website where we could advertise. And because of the quality of the design I could do, I'm not saying it's great or anything, but it was a lot better than what was out there. We instantly started getting hits. We started getting inquiries. And I remember one of the only sort of competitors we had in English language, there was a guy who built a website. And God knows why he did this. He took a picture of his condo. And what he'd done is he had a long condo, and he had computers along the side like this. And at the back of it was his girlfriend, just sort of sexy like this with a miniskirt. And we're just like, I think we're going to win this. I've got a feeling we've got to win this. And then we were sort of I say we, it was me. I was working out of coffee shops. And I thought, this isn't going to work. And a friend of mine said, would you like to share an office? And I was like, yes, please. And so we started sharing an office, and that was a really big thing for us. Having a physical location gave us a bit of a bonus. We could say, come down and see it. And then it was a case of finding out what we wanted to do is look at what the jobs were popping up, and people saying, I need this, and this. And then we would exactly take that. I would exactly take that job requirement and put it as a course title. So it was WordPress designer for a long time, or WordPress engineer and things like that. Then it became WordPress developer, plugin developer, theme designer, etc. So we started using those words and making those as courses. Yeah.
So whatever the market was demanding, you guys were offering courses that would allow people to get to that that job title, basically, whatever they were shooting for next. That's brilliant. I love that. And I mean, it's so simple, but it makes, a lot of people don't think like that. I mean, it's the same thing for content. There's a ton of people in general. There's a ton of people who will blog about whatever pops in their head, but they never think to go, well, what's trending right now? Or what's truly useful to my audience? Who is my audience? It's just those simple things that make all the difference when it comes to sparking that interest or
with content, you have to. I always think of this. I kind of made this up. I'm not saying it's great or anything, but you have to do the 3 E's, which is educate, edify, or entertain. And everyone says, what do you mean with edify? I said, well, look, some people just love cats. They just love cats, and you stick an article saying 10 cat things, and they'll click it. They'll just love it. So edification, or if you're into Red Sox or whatever. So if you've got those three things, you tend to get really, really good results. And what we've done with our content as well is I get like an okay writer. Sorry if the writer is listening to this, because he'll know who he is. We get an okay writer to do the guts of it. And then what I do is I'll send it over to my team, and then they'll do sort of a bit more of a deep dive. So we just did, for example, 10 UI tools for 2017. It's not published yet, but now what I've done is I've got the OK writer to do it. He's gone through the tools. He's looked through Quora, and he looked through Facebook and the groups and what people talk about and stuff like that, and he got those names. He went onto their websites. He did what a writer does. He, made a sales text for them basically. And then what I did is I've got a new intern and an experienced UI designer, and I want the new intern to go into each of these programs and use it as a newbie and write about that. And then send it over to the expert UI designer. I want her to use it, and I want her to write about it. So it's like normal review, newbie, and then the expert. So it takes your content to a new level. Because for me, the content that really works is when people use it, or it's something that you can physically do, and you go, I have to bookmark this, otherwise I'm going to feel guilty. I feel as though I'm going to miss out. Wow,
that's such, I love that process of getting the different perspectives. I think that's excellent. Let's see here. That's one thing, you just having those multiple people. I mean, a lot of people in our community who are creating web courses, they're one-man shops or one-woman shops, and I'm interested in what you did in order to scale up. I mean, like, was it just a matter of going, oh, we sold this amount, I can now afford to have one new person, and then you just kept repeating that process? And then, and what types of people did you search for when you had the ability to hire on?
Well, what I did is I started off, so, I mean, if somebody who's in my position a few years ago is listening, what I would say to him or her is obviously do courses around your skills, what you do really well. As soon as you need to start extending yourself, start looking for someone. But one thing that a very, very good friend of mine said, and she became my teacher, she says, don't look for yourself in your teachers. So if you're one of these people who does know a lot of things and you've been around a long time and you teach really, really well, don't expect to find that passion and ability in someone else. You should look for it, but you won't find the whole package. You might find someone who's just, a good teacher, okay, who might not have years and years of experience, but is great for getting people from zero to beginner, right? And that's all you need, because after that, intermediate and advanced, they do it themselves. So that's another bit of advice is don't try and teach intermediate and advanced, because people will learn themselves. They'll go to Elegant Themes and they'll read a blog post, and they'll go to Moz and they'll read a blog post about digital marketing, whatever it is, and they'll teach themselves. So you're going to concentrate on zero to beginner and just after intermediate. So when you're looking for teachers or you're looking to expand, just look for people who can just do these niche things. So for example, InDesign. So let's say that you wanted to, you're teaching Divi, you're teaching WordPress or web design, but there's been a call for people who know how to do branding. It's like, I really want to know how to do branding and make a logo and a business card. Do you code courses on that? And they go, well, not really. I'm a web designer. But if you know someone who can do just that, it's going to be really, really useful for you. And again, it doesn't have to be in person. And you can find someone who you can say, look, I've always worked with Sheila. She's in Australia. She's amazing. And she'll be able to do a course for you. And if you can try and find a method of teaching that fits you, maybe it's PPP, which is present, practice, and produce, or whatever it is you want to do, try and tell her to do the same thing so it feels like the same company, and that can be the thing. We use something called Format, and I did a course on it from Dr. Bernice McCarthy. I had to wake up at 5 a.m. and learn. Damn Americans, so far away. All the good stuff's in America. So we learn how to do that. And so every course has that same thing, which is straight away we start a discussion. So it's like, hey, why do you want to know this? Why do you want to know WordPress? Oh, well, I want to do this. Great. So you want to do a cat website. Great. You want to do an e-commerce website. You want to do a real estate website. And then keep referring to those projects as you're teaching. And it makes people feel warm and cuddly inside. But what I'm trying to say, sorry to go on a lot about it, but it's just be consistent. So when you are looking to expand with other teachers, is get them to agree on a method of teaching, a flavor that's your business.
And so as you get more teachers on board, I mean, I guess what I'm asking as well is what is the process of actually organizing all that? I mean, you have multiple teachers under one umbrella. How do you coordinate everything? How do you serve up all that content in one space coming from different areas? You know, can you speak to that?
Is that with regards to online or with in-person workshops?
Both. I mean, specifically online, but I mean, since your particular format is to record live workshops, that I'm sure that in and of itself is its own unique challenge.
Well, we get every teacher to do it on the screens. We have the Macs here, and so they record it and then they put it onto a share drive here in the school. So as soon as that's done, and then it can go to the content team and get chopped up. So everything gets put into year month topic, and then it's just the name of the student and the name of the course. You're asking me, yeah? Name of the course, and then the lesson number, and then that gets used for the content. So that's one way of doing it. Is your file structure is going to be really important. Don't use Dropbox because it'll kill you. It'll just especially if you like us, if you have one computer and then many other computers, Dropbox will freeze all the computers in the school. So do be careful on what file system you're using. Drive is pretty good for Google. So with our workshops, what we do is we have like a template for how to make a course. So that's one thing I would recommend is how to make a course. Now, Udemy has a really good one, actually. Udemy has a structure that you can take from. When you do that, I use Trello. So Trello is absolutely amazing. And we have to do, then we have in progress, then we have complete. Sorry, in progress, check, and then complete. And you just move these cards through. You have to check out Trello to see what I mean, right?
Yeah, I'm familiar, but
not everybody might be, but essentially it's called Kanban. So you just move tasks through it like that. And then gradually, if you work with a teacher, or we call it an SME, a subject matter expert, if you're the course creator, you're the entrepreneur, you can then work with them to come up with ideas. So in my to-do, I've got things like brainstorm. What could this course be? What do people need to know? I mean, for example, now we want to do a workshop on SSL. So installing SSL certificates. It's a brand new thing. Google has said, I'm going to kick you in the ass if you don't do it. So, that's a course that we want to do. So you brainstorm about it. Second thing is look for other courses so you're not copying them. I know I do mean that. Don't copy them.
Yeah.
Don't try and copy them, right? The third thing is to look at the job requirements. What is on the job scene? What are people asking? Fourth one is to ask your previous students, do you like this idea? Are you interested? And then have a talk to other experts and say, look, we want to do this course on Divi. What are some of the things that you should avoid? And someone might say, yeah, please tell people to stop installing plugins for everything. Just tell them to stop doing that, keep the plugins down, and a lot of the stuff that you need is in Divi anyway, so you can adapt things. Just because it says testimonial, it doesn't have to be a testimonial. It could be, you know what I mean? You can use the modules in different ways, and that's the kind of insights that you can get from talking to other experts. And use the community. There's loads of really lovely people on the Divi examples and stuff communities on Facebook.
Facebook groups,
lovely people. And you can say, look guys, I've got an idea, and they'll go, oh, you don't use that, you want to use this, and you're like, oh, brilliant. So have this in your arsenal, and then once you've got your topics for each of your lessons, then you go inside and you start putting in links from blog posts and videos and YouTubes and tutorials and scraps of piece of paper and whatever, and you just get it all in like that. Look at the flow, does it make sense? And then show it to the experts again, buy them a beer or something, and then start building the lessons. That's the way we do it.
Sounds awesome. I mean,
secrets.
I know. I'm sitting here going, hey, great. I'm just gonna sit here and learn about web courses today. Apparently, that's I'm all for it. Let's talk pricing. I mean, I'm on your pricing page, so we go from brainstorming to planning and coordinating to building, and now it's time to sell. Walk us through how you guys do pricing and what you found to be effective for e-course pricing.
Sure. Well, in-person ones, we found that obviously you can charge more. With the e-learning ones, what we tend to do is we try and always get, for our business model anyway, is we want people to learn kind of like this through Skype. So we always do very, very low pricing. It's like $19 or $10 or something like that for some of the courses. And then when you want to actually do a lesson, then yeah, I'm not sure what it is in dollars now, but you'll pay something like 10,000 baht. I don't know what it says in dollars for that.
9,500 is what I'm seeing for the group course.
It's Thai, yes, Thai baht. So
and it's 271 US.
Yeah, $271 for group. I'm having a look at my own pricing now.
$50 for private. What's the 1-to-1?
1-to-1 is like a private lesson. So if you're doing group and you're joining like a group class, remember we mainly do in-person training. So we don't really do group online yet, but we do 1-to-1. So 1-to-1 is $50 an hour, and you can learn exactly what you need. So a lot of people love doing building a website. So we do something called Build It With Us. So you come to us and say, look, I want to build a website about cat, whatever that thing is in the background, cat
trees.
Cat trees. Cat trees. So I want to build a website about cat trees. Can we build it together? And they don't want to become web designers, but they just want to be able to build their own website. And that's where our teachers come in. We'll sit with you and say, right, number one, what do you want to build? Why do you want to build it? Let's do a sitemap. Let's do some wireframes. Let's do a content list of what you need to collect. Once you've got this content, let's meet again for the second lesson, show you WordPress. You can put some of the details in. Third lesson, let's use Divi, finish it off.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. So you typically, like, that must have been what you did with the guy you were telling a story about earlier. It was 6 hours in total, and he had a website, a consulting company website. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I just sent you Rachika Shop. I don't know if you're in the message there. He built this over a bit longer because he was a little bit older. I think he was about 4 or 5 lessons. It's ratchikashop.thististap.com, and we've been using This Is Tap as a place. It's a great place actually to do free hosting for WordPress. So you basically click and you install WordPress. You can upload Divi. You can work on it there, and then you can choose whether you want to pay them. I think it's only like $9 or something for the hosting, and then you can just put your domain name and it's live straight away, or you can move it to another host if you prefer.
Oh wow! So especially for that, getting people introduced to it, it's perfect because it's free and you're working on a live website. And then if they don't like it, then they can abandon it. If they love it, then they can pay $10 and run with it.
Exactly.
Well, that's awesome. So sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say one thing that might be useful for your readers. I think one of the biggest things, 2 bits of advice that I wish I would have done earlier, is number one is if you're building a course that's a low level, have at least minimum the 2nd level ready. Even if it's not ready to sort of teach, but yeah, very, very close. So one thing I did wrong was we did really good beginners courses and everybody loved us and they were like, here, have more money. I want to do the intermediate. And I was like, I haven't got it. And they're like, oh, right, well, I'll go then. And you're like, sugar. So yeah, definitely if you are going to plan to do this, have like a smaller, easy entry-level course that just gets people to know you, because you really need to charm people with your course. Another bit of advice is invest in sound. The video is not that important, but the sound has to be amazing. So please invest in sound, even if you've got a crappy screencasting program, and even if you use MS Paint, I don't care, but the sound has to be good.
So what's behind that? I mean, you found that people don't care much about the video and they really want, crisp audio?
No, it's just that they respond better with the sound. They really love the voice. That if you ever look on YouTube and the sound is bad, it's just annoying.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it is, even if you don't have lots of effects and stuff like that, I mean, go to Fiverr and you can just pay literally $5 for a little logo to come in and do this and, you know, whatever. So you can do that, but please invest. Like I use a Snowball mic, blue mic. You look like you've got a nice mic there, so it's very, very important. But the thing I really wanted to share with you is lead generation. So when you're doing things like lead generation, try and get something like Gravity Forms, or if you're using Contact Form 7, install the Contact Form 7 DB plugin, because that will do is it will keep a list of everybody. The one from Elegant Themes isn't, the one that's part of the module isn't as configurable. It's not that great. So I do recommend using Gravity Forms. And then what you'll need to do is find a really good or simple CRM to capture when people contact you, because it's so easy to think, oh, it's just a few people, but a few people a week or month becomes a lot more people over a year. And you really want to be able to say, hey, Bob and Jane, we've just got a new course. You have to leverage your customers again and again and again, because, you know, they want to do that. If they like you, they'll do it. So we use something called ProsperWorks. It's a little bit expensive for us because we have to have the higher package, but it's really good. Sorry,
can you repeat that, the tool?
ProsperWorks.
ProsperWorks.
Yeah, so ProsperWorks. And it just fits inside Gmail. So as soon as someone emails you saying, hey, I'm really interested in your course, you can click and you can add them as an opportunity and then follow up later.
Oh, wow.
So it's just little things like that. The business side of teaching online is really important, because it's so easy just to, you know, assume that, you know, I'm not going to get that many customers. But the old thing is like, what is it? It's 80% easier to keep a customer than get a new one or something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I wish I would have known that, because we would have had 9 years of data instead of only 2 years. So, yeah.
So the one thing I wanted to circle back around to real quick on the pricing was,
yes,
what actually made those prices work? Did you find a sweet spot? Did you experiment some and go, okay, here's what, you know, roughly we have to have these things set at in order to convert and get people coming in?
Yeah, we were kind of lucky because we did it based on amount of customers. So, for example, the one-to-one was just rammed. We were just rammed and rammed. People were just going, I'll buy 50 hours. And you're like, great, okay. So, and then you teach them and stuff like that. And it was just becoming really, really difficult to manage all that. And then we thought, why are we struggling to work on just this low price? And we put the price up. People still kept booking and booking, and then we kept the price up. And then eventually it got to a point where people were kind of appreciating it, but they were considering it a lot more and not just going, there you go, there's $50, you know, $500 or whatever. So we did the pricing based on how quickly new customers were coming. Another thing we did with our pricing was, because of the quality of our teachers, we had to look at the cost of that. So we work, any business does, is you want to slide like a third cost and then you make 2/3. And then that other third there is for running the business, and then you got a third profit. So that's how we work. We work on a 33% profit, because they have to, you know, buy new courses, and you have to find new teachers, and God knows how much I spend on food, because Thai people love to eat. My staff are always hungry. Buying new computers, you know, all these kind of things. So one of the things that you must do is work out your costs. Because that can give you an idea of it. And then the next thing to do is start looking, something that might help is look at freelancer rates in that local area. So if somebody's looking for, say, a web designer or looking for a graphic designer, and they're charging $60 an hour, but if you charge a little bit lower than that, you can say, look, I'm a little bit cheaper, and I'm going to teach you how to do it yourself, so you don't have to pay that $60 again. You can do it yourself. So there's that kind of way of doing pricing as well. So.
And it seems like, I mean, obviously your focus is very much on the local area, and you get I mean, obviously you get people coming to you from all over the world online, but what has been the benefit of really focusing on getting business, drumming up business in your area, as opposed to just online and casting that wide, you know, global net or whatever?
Recommendations is an easy answer to that, because one thing I always say to we would be dead without recommendations, because we just don't get that. I mean, we do now, but we didn't get that many inquiries. So it literally is word of mouth. It's the same as a web designer. That's how you start in web design. You do one website for a pizza shop that kept you giving you pizzas instead of money. Sorry, that was my life. No, have pizza. No, I need money. I've got a rent to pay. Have pizza. I don't want fucking pizza. Anyway, so and then he told his friend and stuff like that. So it's doing the local market is you can then become the person who people recommend. Like, you know, Bill down the shop. Go and see Bill, he's great, you know, and or go see Nathan, he's a great guy for this. So you get to be known for one thing. And again, try and specialize. Try and be that person who does Divi or does WordPress or does SEO or optimization. And then people will recommend you for that. So if you just try and teach everything and stuff, it gets messy. Just focus on one thing.
Well, that sounds brilliant. And I think I'm trying to see if we can create some bookends here. So just to recap real quick, we've gone, when it comes to people interested in creating their own e-course business, similar to what you've done with Web Courses Bangkok, there's a certain process that I'm kind of starting to understand now. We've got your planning stage, which is brainstorming, and then it goes into, you know, kind of running a rough outline and research by experts, doing a couple rounds of that, then getting a sort of rough course, then the polished course with multiple perspectives, and then we get into
doing the recordings.
Then doing the recordings, starting, and your preferred method is doing the live recording with a live group. So you're teaching a course while recording a course, getting 2 for 1 there, and then pricing competitively based on local rates, and, you know, I'm assuming competitive rates online as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, we've had people come from all over the world to do. We have a web professional course that's 3 months intensive, and that's the one that's focused on Divi a lot. And that's 50,000 baht, so it's just under $1,000 for a 3-month intensive kind of boot camp sort of thing. And at the end of it, you get a certification from us, but it's that nobody cares about that. Let's be honest. It's the portfolio. So you get like 3 or 4 really polished, beautiful projects that you can put on your portfolio, and that's $1,000. So that works. And we've had people from all over. We had one class that had Finnish, Iranian, Scottish, Swiss, 2 Americans.
All over.
And we had people who used to install elevators. We had someone who used to be a ice cream man in Gothenburg, and they just thought, I want to be a web designer, so I'm going to go to Thailand and be a web designer. And funny, some groups, we were talking about this today, some groups gel really well, some don't, sometimes do. Some groups are quiet, some groups are alcoholics. You know who I'm talking about, Tira. And some groups are, and it's fun. And I would highly recommend if you are doing an e-learning business or something like that, you have to leverage the communities around it, because we love sharing. I mean, look at this interview that we've had today. I've given you all my secrets. I don't care, because I would love people to do the same thing, you know, and also don't be competitive, because there's no point. There's such a big market out there.
We say that all the time on this podcast. There's room for everybody. That's why everybody's okay with getting on here and talking about everything they do with Divi, all their secrets, just like what you're talking about. I mean, it's great because, you know, the Facebook groups are a prime example of this. I mean, everybody in those groups has their own business, whether they're freelancing or they're opening their own marketplace or they're selling third-party plugins. And a lot of them are technically head-to-head competitors, but they're sitting there helping each other out with their code, you know, like, oh, you know, I think your product could be a little bit better than mine today if you add this little, or whatever. So, but the point is that there's so many people who either have never had websites or just getting into it. And because of the way that WordPress and Divi are positioned and work together, you're not going to run out of customers. You're not going to run out of clients. In fact, the most successful people I found are doing kind of what you're talking about, which is becoming so close with their co-opting their communities to such an extent that they're just handing work back and forth. Like, I'm booked up this month, you take this. And have you found something similar with e-courses and stuff? Have you found people sending folks your way because their course doesn't cover what yours does, and vice versa?
We've had that with there's a Bangkok something in academy, I can't remember the name, but yeah, we've been passing stuff, and also when people want to do more soft skills and kind of ERP stuff and more corporation stuff, we send it to them. And yeah, definitely sending it over to people. And also, even on our Udemy courses, we'd say, right, if you really want to learn how to use Sublime, then go to this one. Or if you really want to learn how to use build a theme template, go to this course. So we do it all the time, you know, and you'd hope that people do it to you, you know. So,
well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's see here. I'm looking at our time here, and we're kind of running out of time. We're up at the 40-minute mark, so we're probably should wrap it up. Let's end with a bit of a parting thought here. If someone is overwhelmed by everything that we've talked about today, that seems like such a massive project and undertaking, how would you direct people to get started, and how would you direct people to simplify and just take that first step?
My advice would be to don't do it on your own. Do some brainstorming with some friends. Get a couple of beers, get a whiteboard, and just talk to other people. Because I think a lot of the time thoughts bounce around in your head and don't go anywhere. Yeah. Unless you vocalize it, you get stuck. So one of the things that really helped me was just grabbing a friend and saying, look, I've got this idea for a school. This is a reason behind it. And he might go, well, dude, you're missing this, or that's a great idea. And he just goes, right, okay, that's a good idea. I'm going to go with this. Yeah. So I would highly recommend as a final thought is collaborate.
That's genius. And it works doubly well for e-courses, because you got to remember, or just teaching in general, you got to remember, if you're teaching something, you're interacting with another human being, so you might as well do that during the creation process too.
Yeah, perfect. And have beer. Must have beer.
All right. Well, Carl, thank you so much for coming on the show. I think that's a great place to end it. Really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. I'm glad we got together eventually.
Well, that's all for this episode of Divi Nation. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I just want to give another big thank you to our guest, Carl Heaton, for coming on the show. If you have any questions about the topics that we discussed in today's show, please feel free to leave them in the comments section on the Elegant Themes blog, and we'll be sure to respond. Thanks again for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you around the community. As always, I'll be back right here next week with another episode of Divi Nation.